darling. Welcome back. Today I am going to be meeting someone new. This is Miniminuteman, and from chat's reaction, everyone being excited, I am very excited. Don't know too much about this, but we are going to be learning about the vampire graves of Europe. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are as well. If you are new here, please do consider subscribing. It'd really help me out. I'd very much appreciate it. Thank you. Also, use code MOAN for 10% off your order at Gamer Subs. Thank you. Are you ready? Let's go.
This video will be covering topics that some viewers may find disturbing. While all of it will be in an educational format, it will contain images of burials as well as discussions of death and violence. Viewer discretion is advised. Vampires. You know them, you love them, you have a weird obsession with them, and according to the Smashing Pumpkins, the world is one of them.
Oh.
These fictional, blood-sucking creatures have captivated the minds, hearts, and fantasies of many in the modern age. They've inspired television shows like What We Do in the Shadows and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. They've inspired books like Salem's Lot and Twilight. They've inspired movies like Salem's Lot and Twilight. And what's that other one? Interview with a Vampire. I haven't seen it, but I hear it's good, apparently. And
I actually do want to watch that. I've seen a lot of clips from Interview with a Vampire, and I've essentially ruined the entire thing for myself by watching the clips, because I know like the stuff that happens, but like I want to watch it anyway.
Even music that I will reluctantly admit I listened to much too recently. But for this video, we're going to be going back to a time when vampires weren't heroes, heartthrobs, or cartoon villains, but instead were viewed as a legitimate threat of supernatural origin. A time when paranoia and superstition around the occult resulted in innocent people being treated with the accountability and brutality reserved for demonic entities. Howdy friends, my name is Milo Rossi, and today we're going to be exploring these superstitions and the grim archaeological evidence that sheds light on those whose lives and afterlives were marred with the brutal superstition of the vampire. I already said brutal, didn't I? I don't know. We'll leave it. What's the worst that can happen? It sounds like shit? Fine. Title card.
Oh my god, that reminds me. I don't know if you guys know Dead Meat. I've been watching so many kill counts from Dead Meat, and like that's a thing. It's always title card, and he's coming up to a title card. Oh, and what's this? A title card. Check them out. I love them, by the way.
Uh-oh. You guys see that? Hotspot's starting to creep in here. The sunset's coming. Guys, it's happening. It is 45 degrees in the studio right now. Last video was 65 degrees. At this rate, 3 videos from now, I'll be dead. YouTuber and archaeologist Milo Rossi found dead, frozen in his own home. How this is even possible, we have absolutely no idea. So the reason I was inspired to make this video today is because of a video that I made a very long time ago when I first started out on TikTok. It's some of my good old-fashioned debunking content and dates back to a terrible time in my life. A time known as October of 2021. Whoa, is it actually? Hold on, what's today? Whoa,
is it October?
I may have actually recorded this like almost exactly 3 years ago. That's crazy. Either way, let's give it a watch.
Vampires used to roam the earth, and you can't convince me otherwise.
Yes, I can. Watch this.
These are burial cages from the medieval times, and they were to prevent the undead from escaping from their graves.
They aren't, and no, they weren't.
That would be for like preventing grave robbing or something, wouldn't it?
They're called mort safes, and they were invented in the 1800s in England. It was common practice for medical students to learn anatomy on real human subjects. Of course, the best place you could go to find an abundance of these subjects is a graveyard. The living didn't want to see their deceased family members exhumed and put under the scalpel by a bunch of hungover frat guys. They started to do this. They would lock the bodies into the ground.
Wow. Classic. My hair was a lot better back then. What was I doing with it? God damn, look at that. That's luscious. This was one of my first videos to get like 10 million views, which I was stoked about. And it was just some guy doing like vampire pseudo-archaeology. But anyway, this video did so well that I decided to make another one like a week later because there was more people talking about the same bullshit.
She's proof that vampires used to live on the world.
Oh boy, another video about vampires. I feel like I've heard about all the arguments that there are for vampires at this point, but since it is the season, I suppose I will hear this young man out and see if he can change my mind.
Young man, that man was probably about the same age that you were, Milo. Sit the fuck down. Wow. Look, I don't want to hear a goddamn thing about it, okay? I was in like a manic episode, all right? The thing that he talked about in this video is the Vampire of Venice, a human skeleton found with a brick lodged in its mouth, which is vicious and horrifying, and was likely part of the superstition of people thinking that she was a vampire. Does this mean she was actually a vampire? No. But what I think is really interesting about these discoveries is that even though these people weren't vampires, the superstition still meant that they were treated as if they were. And as I looked into this phenomenon a little bit more, I found that this discovery was just the tip of a horrifying iceberg. That despite vampires not actually being real, the mere superstition of them means that we have archaeological evidence of people who were accused of being vampires. So I think in honor of these videos from right as I was about to transition onto YouTube, today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the horrifying world of vampire burials. But I think in light of today's topic, we're gonna need a little bit of a mood change. First, as an homage to my amazing fashion sense from 3 years ago, we're gonna need a little bit of a costume change. And second, we need to wait for the sun to go down. I wanna start a band. It's gonna be composed of a harpsichord, a theremin, a slide whistle, and the triangle. I'll see you after dark.
Ooh. Oh my god, Jasper? Yo, wait, no, look at the hair, the length of the hair, okay? And it's got like the wavy to it. This is Jasper Cullen. He's been transformed.
Jesus.
Bless you for leaving that in. That is so good. That is so great.
That's easier.
Oh, don't burn yourself.
How the fuck?
There you go. Yay!
Wow. I have outdone myself this time, folks. That's fucking crazy. Ooh, I bet you can't see me at all standing here. Well, welcome to my video. Okay, only one last thing to do and we can get this bad boy going.
Yes,
I think
so good.
the only appropriate drink to have with a video like this is a bottle of wine. Milo, why are you drinking? Who are you drinking the wine tonight?
Yo, can I just respectfully simp for like a second? Okay, can I just respectfully, okay, the little bit of like smudge going on. Oh my god, he's also giving like Johnny Depp a little bit with the stash and like the smudge. Sir, you look damn fine. Very, very handsome. Very nice. I'm loving the hair. I don't normally like long hair, actually. Loving the hair, loving the smudge, actually liking the stash. Loving the rings. Can you guys see his rings? Hold on, my bitch ass is in the way. Look at this. Look at those. Respectfully as fuck, handsome as fuck. Okay, continue.
Drinking the wine tonight for, 'cause the boys. Now, of course, as we can see, it is almost 40 degrees in here. So didn't really think that part through, but it's all in the name of content, you know? Oh, Jesus. It's only been there for 120 years. Let's put a hole in it now.
Ooh, do be careful. He's got it. Hold on. Take your time.
There better be sick, like, organ music playing this entire time. Which way is it again? Okay. That's the way. I like it. I found this thing in the garbage.
Nice!
I was gonna say more, but honestly, that's just fucking, that's good enough. Oh my god.
Ooh. Oh.
Jesus fucking Christ, this is not the height this is supposed to be used at.
Hold on.
There we go.
Oh.
Anyway, this is why I found it in the garbage.
Oh no!
Straight up not working. Look, that gag was gonna be so good if it actually fucking worked.
It's okay, we'll edit it in post.
Oh, I was just being an idiot, actually. It completely works. You aren't supposed to pull it back again. Okay, now we're ready.
Aww. Oh, get a silly. Oh, yo. You gonna take it? Okay, there's too much happening. I was gonna say, get this man a silly straw because of the cup, right? I was like, get him a silly straw. And then he like got the excess off and I thought he was gonna do a swig from the bottle and then he was gonna steal my heart. And then he put the top on it anyway. Okay, we're fine.
Okay, let's start the video. Let's get vamping. We suck in tonight. See my breath?
No, you should do the thing like you're smoking. You should put like your 2 fingers up to your lips and act like you have a cigarette and go. And then, yeah, come on now.
I can see my breath. Can't see your breath though. Or can I? It is the summer of 2018, and an archaeological team led by David Soren is conducting an excavation in the Umbria region of Italy. It's in a little town called Lugnano, and the site that the archaeologists are working on is the ruins of a 1st century Roman villa. Now, while that seems like a pretty logical place for an archaeological excavation, they weren't actually there because of the villa. Instead, they were there because about 400 years after the villa fell into ruin, it was repurposed. In about the 5th century AD, this ruin was converted into an impromptu graveyard. A graveyard which locally gained the name La Necropoli dei Bambini, or morbidly, the Cemetery of the Children. At the time of this excavation in 2019, the remains of 50 different individuals had been found there, and as the name suggests, they were all quite young. The eldest discovered up until this point, a female, was only 3. But during this excavation, the archaeologists discovered something bizarre: the unusual burial of a child uncharacteristic of anything else found at the site. The remains were found in an improvised tomb made out of roof tiles from the collapsed villa above, and they were from a 10-year-old whose sex was not able to be identified. But the thing that set them apart from the rest of those in the cemetery was not only their age, but the way that they had been buried. This individual, for whatever reason, had been buried on their side with a stone lodged in their open mouth. The stone had flecks of mortar on it, indicating that it had also come from the ruin above. This told archaeologists that this was not just a piece of rubble in the ground where the child had been buried, but had been placed there intentionally. This grisly discovery came as a shock to the archaeologists who had never discovered anything quite like it, and it earned this discovery the nickname the Vampire of Lugnano. Now the logical question here is why? Now this cemetery had been started in around the mid-5th century because of a massive outbreak of malaria. During this outbreak, younger populations would have been hit exceptionally hard, a morbid trend that we can see indicated in this graveyard and is likely the reason that this graveyard existed in the first place. Now the Vampire of Lugnano also had an abscessed tooth. This symptom is indicative of someone who died from malaria. That candle just melted straight through and just burned out inside. That's a little creepy. There we go. Now, at the time, the good people of the 5th century probably did not have a great idea on what malaria was, how it worked, or the processes by which to avoid it, which likely resulted in an immense amount of superstition. One of the primary reasons for why this individual was buried on their side with a stone in their mouth is based on the superstitious belief that they could rise from the dead and infect others, and that these burial precautions would prevent that from happening. Now, why this child was treated in this way while other ones in the cemetery weren't is currently unknown. Perhaps there were some other extenuating circumstances around their death that would have warranted them being buried in this way. As we will see later, accusations of vampirism are something that go far beyond just the way that an individual died.
I wonder what, and he might go over it, and I'm just getting ahead of myself, but I wonder what was supposed to be the signs of vampirism. Because like the joke that everyone makes, especially like me, right? If you read, you're a witch, right? Is it like that kind of silly, goofy and stuff? I'm trying to think before I'm told, like, if I could come up with anything that would make me think that someone's a vampire, maybe like if they have insomnia or something, maybe, like, you know what I mean? Like something silly that like would not at all make anyone supernatural, but like just something along those lines, right? Like maybe they don't sleep good at night. Boom, they're a fucking vampire. If it's the same kind of logic of if can't read is witch, then if no sleep is vampire. You know what I mean? Like think. I don't know if it's gonna be that silly or not though. But I wanted to do a guess before we actually get told.
As strange and disturbing as this burial is, it is far from the level of grisly creativity that would come to arise in later vampire burials. In fact, the vampire of Lugnano, buried in the 5th century, actually predates the idea of a vampire, or at least a vampire as we know it. While the vampire superstition wouldn't arise until about 800 years later, these haunting burials highlight a fear of something that long predates the vampire. Something that our modern world has mostly forgotten. Something referred to as a...
Huh? Oh! Hey, I know that! That's from Phasmophobia! I know that. Okay, hold on. Hold on. I was very rude earlier. I did not take a drink when you were taking a drink. Now I will take a drink. I will actually take 2 drinks. Cheers. Although mine is vodka and not wine. Not this time. I do apologize. You look disappointed. Are you disappointed in the fact that it's vodka? Or are you disappointed in the fact that I already had a drink? I'm not sure which, but I'm sorry. I was just trying to join in. I was trying to be... I'm sorry.
I was downstairs getting ready for this video, and I was like, oh man, what kind of glass should I use? And I was gonna find like a cool chalice or something. And I opened the cabinet, and this was the first thing that I noticed. And I was like, shit, I gotta use this stupid ass cup in my vampire video. 'Tis the season. There are many theories as to where the vampire myth came from. And like any piece of superstition or mythos or fable or legend, it's almost impossible to actually nail down a single concrete source. Instead, they are something that just morph through time as they are told and told and told and retold and change pretty much indefinitely. And I would imagine that there's probably been some kind of superstitious fear around the dead rising again since, like, as long as people could die. The idea of a vampire is something which, as we'll see, originated really in, Europe. But literally, like, every culture around the world has some variation of the dead rising again, whether it be in a physical form, a spiritual form. I genuinely think that if you just, left 10 people on an island who didn't know anything about the outside world, eventually they would have their own superstitions around the dead rising again. Okay, anyways, let's go back to the beginning a little bit here. Before there were blood-sucking vampires, there were revenants. This is a superstition that really begins to be seen around the 6th or 7th century AD, and it's sort of a blanket term for entities born out of the beliefs and superstitions of various pagan religions. And this is exactly why we can find vampire burials that predate the actual idea of a vampire, because many of the superstitions and precautions surrounding revenants were things which carried over as it was later adopted by Christianity. And we have pretty significant archaeological evidence to suggest that these superstitions also vastly predate the idea of a revenant as well. Take, for example, a grim discovery made by construction workers in the Saxony-Anhalt region of Germany. While working on installing power lines, a construction team discovered human remains. It really is amazing how many of these stories start with a construction worker finding them. It must be insane to stumble across that while you're just like on your day job. The Bog Bodies of North America video I did a while ago started in the exact same way. It's just like, oh, we're gonna build a housing development. Corpse. Anyway, they called in archaeologists to come analyze the site, as they should have, and what they discovered was the grave of a man around the age of 50. He was buried on his side, which is a little unusual, and what's even more unusual is that his grave contained no grave goods, offerings, evidence of clothing, or burial rites. But the most unusual feature of this grave was that he had been buried underneath a massive stone. Not like under a stone, like a headstone, like a stone had been placed on top of his body. This huge flat stone was about 3 feet long and 2.5 feet wide and estimated to weigh around 110 pounds. Did this thing come undone?
Yes.
No, my little fucking thing is undone. Don't let him touch you without your thing. And this massive stone was placed directly on top of the man, with his lower body and legs crushed beneath it. The hypothesis is that this was also to prevent him from rising from the dead. Now, what's so amazing about this site is that it dates back a staggering 4,200 years, almost 3,500 years before the idea of a vampire would even come close to materializing. And this burial is attributed to the Bellbeaker culture, a culture that I'm sure you all know so much about because it's so commonly talked about all the time.
I know all those guys, actually, by name.
I'm kidding. I had never heard of it until I made this video. Someone get on that. Northo2. I feel like North02 should do a video on that. Everyone go ping North02 to make a video on the Bell Beaker culture. Now, while we're unsure of what the good people of the Bell Beaker culture would have called a guy rising from the dead and haunting the living, we do know that they clearly had some sort of superstition around it. And if it really is the case that this was a precaution taken to prevent someone from rising from the dead, then this is an indication that the same superstition to prevent this from happening persisted for more than 4,000 years. Because, as we're about to see, this exact same strategy of using a huge rock to pin a body down was a method that was also in use when it came to actual vampire burials, which indicates that while the ideas, concepts, and reasons behind the dead rising again have changed a lot over time, some of the superstitions around how you're supposed to deal with it have actually remained the same for thousands of years. Now, the idea of a vampire as we know it today really began to take shape as pagan practices were co-opted by the Christian church. This may come as a bit of surprise, but before Christianity, a lot of people were pagan, and so the Christian church kind of needed to pander to these people in order to make them think that their guy was better than their guy. And to do this, the Christian church did a whole lot of things sort of pulling from pagan religion. They would kind of co-opt some of their holidays and festivals. They would allow pagan people to still practice some of their beliefs as long as the Christian ones were done alongside it. They would, you know, kill all of them. Little things like that that really make you interested in Jesus and stuff. You know what? I'm sorry, guys. Actually, there's no paganism in Christianity. That's just heathen stuff. It's a complete coincidence that St. John's Day is on the summer solstice, or that Michaelmas is right around the fall equinox, or that Jesus just so happened to be born like right near the winter solstice, or that his resurrection is celebrated around the moon cycles of the spring equinox. So anyway, sort of co-opting pagan beliefs, it made Christianity a little bit more palatable to the masses. And by around the 10th century AD, it was the Roman Catholic Church that had co-opted, among other things, the pagan idea of a vampire. What I find to be also very interesting about this is it sort of illustrates how, while beliefs and dogmas have changed through time, every single idea that we have today is pulling things from much older versions. The idea of a vampire may be sort of new, but we've sort of been handling it in a traditional way that has been handed down for literally thousands of years. Christianity, a fairly new religion, but it pulls from things that have been handed down for literal thousands of years. This isn't a theology lesson, but I do think it's something that is kind of interesting.
Frig, hold on. Okay, if we're doing... I thought it was going to be like a one and done with the drink thing. You do not have to do this. Drink water, drink Gamer Supps, use code MOAN for 10% off your order at Gamer Supps. I'm going to keep my drink with me. And I'll drink when he drinks.
Now, as the Catholic Church began to sort of Frankenstein on elements of other existing beliefs, the Catholic Church would allow for some groups of pagan people to continue their burial rites and rites and rituals around the dead, as long as the Christian ones were practiced alongside it as well. This obviously wasn't the case in all places, but by doing this, they sort of allowed some of the pagan beliefs around death and spirituality to sort of make their way into the Catholic Christian dogma. And one of the ways that the pagan fear of the revenant began to combine really well with a Christian ideology was the Christian idea of the soul. With Christianity claiming that the soul is a separate entity of the body and can exist outside of it, this married very well with the idea that the dead didn't have to stay dead. Now again, like with all cultural and societal phenomena, there's really no like time that this happened. This is something which took place gradually and imperceptibly. But it was the marriage between pagan superstition and Christian conquest that would pave the way for the...
Dude, every time he cuts himself off, it's so jarring. If I'm being honest, like, it messes with my brain because it's just right before he's about to say the thing, and then it just cuts to this, and I'm like expecting his voice to like continue talking to say the thing. Vampire.
Entering into the Middle Ages is when the idea of a vampire really kind of started to take shape. And as time went on, the fear of the legitimate threat that these creatures posed to the living began to rise to a simmer. Now, in the beginning, these weren't blood-sucking creatures. Initially, it was believed that a vampire could kill you simply by looking at you. But that had to be nerfed because it was absolutely broken. Bad day to be a vampire, though. That would really suck, you know? Like, you're telling me I used to be able to look at these dudes, now I gotta suck them? No, over time, these... creatures began to morph. Instead of being vengeful spirits that rose from the dead, they started to become demonic entities, which honestly is, I would say, a little bit scarier. You know, it's one thing if fucking old, you know, Jim rose from the grave because, you know, he was pissed off at you because you didn't mow his lawn that one time. But if you start telling me that old Joe's rising from the grave because Satan told him to do so, I'd be like, give me some of that Jesus, you know? Now, needless to say, once this thing started to become about Satan and demons and all that stuff, was when the simmering fear sort of rose into a boil. And there is nowhere where this panic was felt quite as viciously as in Eastern Europe. Again, there are many reasons for this, but one of the ones that I think is really important is that at the time, and probably for many generations afterwards, and some could argue probably even till this day, there was an immense amount of generational trauma. You see, around this time, the area had been absolutely devastated by multiple wars, especially in Poland. The trauma of loss and destruction brought on by a vicious war is something that would have permeated really deep into sort of the psyche of the people at the time. And so it's not all that surprising that a place devastated by war was particularly susceptible to superstition and the fan flames of religious panic. Priests working for the church just exacerbated this situation by pointing the finger at witchcraft and demons. This, of course, went on to ignite the Christian fears of demonology and the pagan superstitions that lay just below the surface, which is why it is here in Eastern Europe that the fear of vampires exploded into something much more similar to
Stop! Stop doing that! Let him finish his sentence!
Yo, how's it going, everybody? I wanted to pop in here for 2 reasons, one of which is very important. The not as important one is, check out this sick hoodie. I think there's sort of a haunting beauty to vampire burials, and I wanted to try and pay homage to it with a piece of clothing. And so we made this sick design. Now, the second and much more important thing is that this design is going to a good cause. You are here right on time. Come here. As some of you may have heard in the news cycle, Hurricane Helene, this lovely lady right here, my girlfriend, went to school in North Carolina. It is where we met. We spent much of the early part of our relationship in North Carolina, and so especially to her, it's a very important place. So this lovely lady did the design for this. I'll pass this on to you.
Doesn't have a ton to do with Asheville, but we felt like it was really important to do what we can, especially with Milo's reach and audience, to just get the word out and continue to send funds to Asheville. It's been almost a month since all of it happened, and with how quickly the news cycle turns over, it's really easy to hear about the hurricane, be devastated for the first couple weeks, and then move on with your life. But a lot of the people in my community who I love are still dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. My teacher, who is like family to me, doesn't have a way to shower in clean water right now. It's still brown coming out of their tap. So it's really important that we continue to do work within that community and other communities near Asheville that don't have as much of a draw, that have been pretty much wiped off the map.
We are going to be donating half of all the proceeds of this hoodie to Beloved Asheville, which is a charity that has been working in Western North Carolina and Asheville long before Hurricane Helene, so we can guarantee that the funds that are raised for it are going to continue going to support the long-running restoration effort in Asheville.
They're a nonprofit that does community organizing on a large scale. They have food banks that they leave throughout the town, and they also just are widely trusted by Asheville as a community. So if you can donate to them, that would be amazing.
I have also linked a link to Beloved Asheville's direct donation page in the description of this video. We will be making a donation. I encourage any of you that can make a donation, as much as it would be great to have, more purchases of the hoodie, and all donations will go through that. I really encourage you that if you do have the money to spend, skip the hoodie and just go straight to donating. And I want to thank you all again for watching this, and thank you for, your support. And I think that with the amount of people that we have here, we can really make a difference. So from Z and I, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We love you.
Schminky wants you to donate to Hurricane.
Whoa, don't go playing on my soft art like that. Schminky said you have to donate to Beloved Asheville.
Vampire hysteria over in Eastern Europe began to really ramp up around the same time as probably the most infamous case of mass hysteria ever recorded. None other than the Salem witch trials. In the 1690s, panic broke out in the rural farming town of Salem on the north shore of my home state of Massachusetts. 30 individuals were found guilty of witchcraft, of which 19 were put to death. Too many witches. Too many witches. Now, I know what you think when you hear that. You think, wow, that is an excellent opportunity for a tourist-based economy. Like, I'm not gonna hate, okay? I'm a masshole at heart, but whenever I drive through Salem and I see like cute little pictures of witches in the windows, I'm like, you know that they like lynched these people, right? This wasn't like a cutesy, like, you know, crystal girly shop kind of situation. But I don't know, you know, maybe that's just me. How long does it take before it's okay for a mass tragedy to turn into a fucking tourist destination? I'm thinking about opening up a t-shirt shop in Jonestown. Come for the Kool-Aid? Stay.
Flavor Aid? Whoa! Kool-Aid was innocent! It wasn't Kool-Aid, it was Flavor Aid! But you know what won't get you poisoned? Gamer Ships. You should drink Gamer Ships. Oh. Poison free.
I need a little more vino. Now, the witch trials were pretty insane. Even though only 19 people were put to death, more than 20 people were accused of witchcraft. That's a lot of people. Wait, did I say 20? Did I say 20? I meant 200. If I didn't say 200, I meant 200, not 20. While the root causes of the Salem witch trials are something which are undoubtedly going to be debated until eternity, what is clear is that this was not an isolated incident. Around this time, across the Anglo-Christian world, panic had broken out over the presence of demonic entities, and the fear of demons, Satan, and witchcraft.
That guy has a face on his butt. That guy straight up has a face on his ass. I'm sorry. I wasn't listening.
Over the presence of demonic entities, and the fear of demons, Satan, and witchcraft were at a fevered pitch. Now, at the same time as the Salem witch trials, a different kind of occult-based panic was happening across the ocean, where the fear of vampires had transcended from an old superstition into a genuine concern. And as a result, people were persecuted accordingly. Take, for example, this instance, which is recorded by an Austrian official in about 1725. This story takes place in a town in Serbia. One of the townspeople, a man by the name of, oh no.
That is me. Every single time someone shows up and it's a new sub or it's a sub and I've like avoided saying their name because I'm gonna mess it up. It's not gonna be good. And so every time I go to read a name in chat, it's just, oh no. All right, okay, here we go. And I believe in you. You got this. You so got this.
Petar.
Listen, I promise I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing and understanding. I'm laughing and understanding. I know how it feels.
Blagojevich. Petar Blagojevich. How'd I do?
Yay! Clappies!
Yay! I didn't do very good, did I?
You did
One
great.
of the townspeople by the name of Petar had passed away. After his death, they did all the things you do when someone dies. You know, bury him, get really drunk, all that stuff. But normally when someone dies, it's kind of over once the last shovel goes in, you know? But not in this case. In just the 8 days following Petar's death, 9 other people in the village would die of a sudden and mysterious illness. Now that is a little bit weird, but what makes it even weirder is that almost every single one of them allegedly claimed to have had visions of Petar strangling them. There are even versions of this story where it said that Petar would return to the house of his widow and son and demand to be let in. In those versions of the story, it ends in a few different ways. In the good version, the widow and the son flee town. And in the bad version, the widow flees town and Petar breaks into the house and kills his son in cold blood. Now, needless to say, people weren't exactly thrilled that all of this was happening. It was a little bit weird. So they went to the priest and they were like, dude, this is like kind of your thing, right? And the priest was like, this is completely above my pay grade. I'm gonna try and get some advice from the church higher ups. We're gonna figure out what we can do about this. situation. But that wasn't good enough for the villagers, and frankly, I don't really blame them. After all, allegedly, you know, multiple people had been killed by Ghost Peter. You never know if you're going to be the one who's next. So they decided to take matters into their own hands. As the story goes, the townspeople exhumed Petar's body to inspect it for signs of vampirism. And when they did, they found him as though he had just died. His skin was unblemished, his nails were a little bit longer, and allegedly his once clean-shaven face now had a beard. As you can imagine, the townspeople weren't exactly stoked. They were like,
yeah, no.
That's fucked up. I know what we got to do about this. So they dragged Petar out of the grave and staked him through the heart, where, again as the story goes, he bled as though he had just died. Now, to really drive this point home to Petar, they decided to finish the job by building an enormous funeral pyre and burning him to ash. At which point, allegedly, the hauntings and mysterious deaths in the village stopped altogether. Now, did this actually happen? I have no idea. Is it very possible that this was the result of a disease in town or something like that, and it was a compounded series of unrelated circumstances that resulted in this crazy outlandish story about a man rising from the dead?
Yeah.
Quite probable. Is it a sick story nonetheless? Abso-fucking-lutely.
Yes.
But either way, there's no use playing Monday Night Quarterback with this, because at this point, people genuinely thought vampires were a threat and that they were killing people. And so elaborate rituals were concocted to keep the dead actually dead. Just like at the Salem witch trials, the things that drew accusations of vampirism varied immensely. But unlike at the Salem witch trials in Massachusetts, most of the people who were accused of vampirism were already dead, which I guess was good for them, because it was not good for the people in Salem. Because vampires are something that rose from the dead, it was normally the circumstances around a person's death that would draw accusations of vampirism. So real quick, I think it's important to go over the many bizarre reasons that people would be accused of being
Okay, wait, that's totally different than what I said earlier. If you got accused of being a vampire after you were dead, that's very interesting, because I was saying, like, you know, if you don't sleep at night or like something like that. So it, like, at least in that way, that's a lot better than being accused of being a witch over something silly and goofy. They didn't have necessarily something silly and goofy while you were alive to then put you to death. Because, at least right now, put you to death over being a vampire. You were already dead, and then sus shit was happening, and then they just thought that it was you. You would be disturbed, like your grave was probably, your body was disturbed after like your death. But like, I mean, that's better for now, right? Because, that's okay for now, I guess. Also, hi, Snow. I mean, it could change. It could turn into you getting accused while you're still alive, but at least for now, I'll take it, I guess. Yeah, who cares? I'm dead, exactly.
All right, reasons that people may be a vampire, speedrun.
Write this down. Write this down. Write this down. Write this down.
Died a violent death. Skill issue. Did you die and then there was a natural disaster after you died? Your fault. Vampire. Were you the first to die in an epidemic that other people would then die of? Your fault. Oh, here's a pretty big one. Are you unbaptized? Yeah, I can smell that. Are you from here? No? Vampire. Were the rituals and ceremonies around your death not good enough for me or our village? Then probably a vampire. This one, okay, this one I'm not going to make a joke about because it's a little depressing, but dying at a sort of significant time in your life or in a sort of significant way. This could be something like dying during childbirth or around a marriage, drowning, murder, suicide, execution. I'm just like listing words that'll get me demonetized, aren't I? Did you do something that would get you demonetized on YouTube? Vampire. Sure, your death may have been followed by a natural disaster, which would mean you're a vampire, but were you also the first one to die in a natural disaster? Vampire.
Also vampire.
Do you look a little weird?
Am I a vampire? Do I be looking a little funky? Do I? You making this face is not helping. Like, guys, I forgot. I have fangs. Fuck. Why is he outing me right now, man?
Vampire. And then, of course, the big ticket item, diseases. No, they didn't know a lot about diseases, and so, vampire. Did you have, rabies, cholera, malaria, or a mental disorder like, I don't know, schizophrenia or something like that?
Vampire.
Vampire. Now, all of these examples are things that have to do with the circumstances around an individual's death. But beyond just these, there's also a whole ton of things that have to do with you after you die that could also get you accused of being a vampire. Was it found that your burial shroud was decomposing faster in your mouth than anywhere else? Vampire. Weird little note here, a lot of the time this was discovered by grave robbers, which I think is funny. You guys aren't gonna believe this. Old Jim over on the hill, his burial shroud's decomposing in his mouth. How did you figure that out? Vampire! Are you dead and someone had a bad dream about you? Well, yep, you're a vampire then. Did a member of your family become ill after you died? You already know the answer to that one. Then there's all kinds of gross ones about blood, like if there's blood coming out of your mouth, out of your ears, if your belly becomes bloated, which are all things that can happen when a person has, you know, died. Is your body pliable? Vampire. Is your body not pliable? Probably also a vampire. I don't fucking know anymore. Are you growing a beard or hair? Rogaine. Vampire. Did you die and look a little bit too fresh? Did you die and look a little too fresh? Right on. Or if your body was moved after burial. Like if you got like uprooted and put somewhere else. Maybe also by those pesky grave robbers. You know, old Jim, his burial shroud was decomposing in his mouth, so we decided to just bury him somewhere else. I decided to bury him in the neighbor's yard. Oh, god damn it, he wasn't a vampire then, but he sure as shit is now. No, the tricky thing about being accused of being a vampire is that you really can't actually do anything about it in the fact that you're dead, which normally makes it very hard to do pretty much anything. But for the living, to whom this was probably the greatest level of concern, they couldn't just let you sit there being all vampire-y and stuff. Okay, so what did they actually do to prevent these people from rising from the dead? Now, a couple things worth noting here. One, superstitions and practices varied a lot from place to place. And two, again, content warning, as if you didn't need it already for that whole last part. If you made it this far, I promise it's nothing you can't handle. Now, fortunately, or unfortunately, I guess, there are countless graves across Eastern Europe that paint a grisly picture of those accused.
Dude, every time. Every time.
Oh, man.
Oh, we need it. Cheers.
It's getting colder in here. I think I need to put on a jacket. Okay, look. I was gonna put on like a cool, like black jacket because it would be cool, but it is just so goddamn cold in here that I don't think I have a choice but to put on this wool coat. I am now Boris, the Soviet vampire. I found this jacket at a yard sale and it was like $10 and I was like, ooh, $10 for a wool jacket, that's kind of cool. And I looked at it and it has a little fucking tank on it. And then I looked inside it and I'm like, oh shit, this thing's old. And I'm like 90% sure this is like an actual like Soviet military jacket or something. I don't know enough about military history to pin it, but maybe someone in the comments, look, this is what you get. Have a look. Yeah, have a little look. There we go.
Nice.
Okay, someone can diagnose it from there.
Do a
but either way, my name is, I am now Vlad. Vlad the Impala. Vlad the Tame Impala. Is that Tame Impala? I don't know. I don't listen. I'm not a fucking normie. Let's go to Poland. Like I said earlier, there are a lot of vampire burials in Poland. Oh god, I have to pronounce names now. For example,
good luck.
like at Drasko-Pomorski. I feel like that's pretty good, but I kind of doubt it. In this town, archaeologists discovered the remains of a cemetery. It dated to around the 17th or 18th century and contained 6 individuals, and it's believed that all of them died of cholera. That being said, almost every single individual in this cemetery was found buried with the elaborate burial superstitions that are reserved for vampires. In one grave were the remains of a man aged between 35 and 45. Him, just like the rest of the people found in the cemetery, were buried in a simple wooden box. And this individual had been buried buried on his back with a small sickle over his throat. This was another common burial superstition to prevent the rising of the vampire, as it was believed that if they tried to get up, they would decapitate themselves. I mean, I guess it's kind of smart. I feel like they probably could have just decapitated them, but whatever. There was also the remains of a young woman between 16 and 19 years old, and she was found with a copper headband around her forehead, a copper coin near her mouth, and as if that wasn't enough, also a sickle over her neck. Some kind of restraint is something that will also be seen a lot at these burials. In this case, a copper headband intended to keep an individual pinned to the ground so they couldn't rise again. There was also the remains of a woman between 30 and 40 found with a sickle across her neck and a coin in her mouth. Coins are and kind of always have been part of various superstitions, in this case made to ward off evil spirits. It's also believed that things like coins and stones would be placed in the mouths of people accused of vampirism so that they would have something to bite down on, so that they couldn't rise from the dead and go on to bite you. I don't know if they thought that someone could just spit the coin out and then bite you, but
nah,
I don't
impossible.
know, it was worth a try, I guess. Along with this, there was the remains of a woman between the ages of 35 and 40 who was also found with a sickle over her neck and a coin in her mouth. But this individual also had a crushed skull. Now, it's believed that this was due to heavy machinery driving over the site beforehand, but I'm not exactly sure. I hope that it was due to heavy machinery. I really hope so, because it is also known that one of the other methods of dealing with a vampire is to crush them with a rock. There was also the remains of a woman between the ages of 50 and 60 who was found with a whole smorgasbord of things to stop her from vampiring, a sickle across her waist, a coin in her mouth, and a stone placed on top of her throat to stop her jaw from opening, and a lack of teeth. It's believed that the teeth were removed post-mortem, which could indicate that that was also a precaution taken to prevent her from vampiring. The sickle across her waist is another one that becomes common in later burials. Just like the belief of putting it across their neck, it was believed that if you put it across their midriff, they would cut themselves in half when they rise up, which would be really hard to do, but I guess, again, worth a shot, you know, worth a shot. It's that or vampire, so you may as well try it. And lastly, the remains of a young individual whose age and sex were unable to be identified, who was found with a stone placed over their throat. This is one of the most expansive vampire graveyards found pretty much anywhere, but it is far from the only one, and definitely far from the only one in Poland. Take, for example, the vampire discovery in...
Oh no.
Peen.
Guys, you're never gonna guess what we found in Peen. You know, we took a really close look at Peen. And it's crazy, okay? Y'all ever seen Peen? You know what happens in Peen.
Peen. Isn't that the band that wrote,
Hey, cheers.
Ocean Man? In the city of Peen, archaeologists discovered the remains of a woman who was buried around the 17th century. Elements from her burial indicated that she was of a fairly high social status, for example, garments made of silk, but, and critically, she had a snaggletooth, which, as we discussed before, could have been enough evidence to suspect that she was a vampire. Though I'd imagine there were probably other circumstances around her death that led people to believe this. But either way, the way we know people think she was a vampire is because she was buried with a sickle across her chest, a sickle across her neck, a coin in her mouth, and a padlock on her toe. This is another trend that was believed to keep vampires from rising, locks either on their toes or shackling their legs together. It is a little bit unusual that a woman of presumably high social status was treated in this way, but again, as is the case with many archaeological sites, we will never know exactly what the circumstances were around her death, which is so goddamn frustrating. Okay, last one from Poland. Why don't we have a look at the discovery from Helm?
I don't know what the L. Yeah, Kelm, but I don't know. That probably does not make that sound.
An American. Chelm. Here was discovered the remains of a child's grave from around the 13th century, kind of at the very beginning of when the vampire myth began to resemble what it does today. Now, I'm not exactly sure why this is, but this one is, for some reason, way more gruesome than all the other ones. The individual at this burial site was crushed beneath huge, heavy stones. And as if that hadn't been enough, they had been decapitated and their severed head placed face down into the grave. This is another element of the superstition around vampires, that if you've buried them face down or put at least their head face down, they wouldn't know which way is up. I don't know what sort of empirical evidence they were using to try and prove that that was the case, but I don't know, maybe they just really thought vampires were stupid or didn't have an internal compass. Guys, whoa, let's step away from Poland here for a second. This is getting out of control. Let's have a quick look at the mother country, fucking Italy. Okay, we've already talked about the vampire of Lugnano, the 5th century remains of a child found in the child cemetery. But that is not the only vampire burial found in the mother country. There's also the vampire of Venice, found in Lazzaretto Nuovo, which I actually touched on at the very beginning of this video. It was the one that British guy was talking about in that TikTok. This is proof that vampires used to live in, what did he say? On the world. Was it on the world or in the world? It was something that didn't make any fucking sense. Tell me your little funny jokes, little man.
This is proof that vampires used to live on the world.
It is proof that vampires used to live on the world. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I'm looking at my outfit that I had then. I got hotter.
Found of Lazzaretto Nuovo in Venice.
Lazzaretto Nuovo. I tried to pronounce it then too. I probably fucked it up as much now as I did then. Anyway, this woman was found buried in a mass plague grave. This aligns with what we were talking about earlier, that people could be accused of vampirism if they died in a plague, if they were the first one to catch it, or something like that. Okay, we're gonna shift our perspective a little bit. Let's have a last little look at Bulgaria. Firstly, let's have a look at the vampire of Perpericon. Perpericon.
Purr. Rickon. Econ. Purpericon. You know, down there in Purpericon. Paprika.
Here, the discovery was made of the remains of a 40-year-old man dating back to about the 13th century. His remains were found staked through the heart with an iron rod, probably the most classic of vampire hunting techniques. This is similar to another discovery made in Sozopol, Bulgaria, where the remains of 2 men dating to the medieval period were also found staked through the heart. And lastly, in Debelt.
The belt.
You gotta put the belt on the pants so they don't fall down. You gotta put the belt.
Hey, if your pants ever fell down in public, you were definitely a vampire, okay? Make sure you wear the belt, all right?
On the pants, you're gonna be arrested for public indecency. Here, the remains of 6 individuals from the medieval period were discovered, and there is evidence to suggest that all of them had been nailed down through their hands, feet, and torsos. These discoveries are also sort of the tip of the iceberg. There are many more and countless more to be discovered. So while these burials have helped us understand some of the ways that you're supposed to, you know, deal with a vampire, there are plenty more alternative vampire strategies. Many people suspected of vampirism were buried with a few different burial customs for redundancy. You know, in case decapitating them didn't work, you wanted to crush them with a rock as well. Like, you know, dot your I's, cross your T's and shit like that. Some of the ones that we touched on that had a few variations of were classic decapitation. While the site we looked at had the individual decapitated and the head face placed down, in other locations the head would be decapitated and placed between the knees. There are also instances of shackles or locks binding the legs and arms to the ground. Some actually took this idea a step further and just cut the legs off, which seems thorough. I know that I certainly wouldn't be able to rise from the dead if I didn't have legs. I also know that I certainly wouldn't be able to rise from the dead. Another interesting one that we sort of touched on is burying an individual face down. There was some belief that if the individual was not facing the direction they needed to go to rise from their grave, they would either just dig farther into the ground, or instead of biting a person, they'd just like bite the dirt. Again, I'm honestly, if I were a vampire, I'd be a little offended because it kind of seems like a lot of people just thought they were really stupid. Like, if I was an undead entity entity, do you really think I'd fall for the old sickle over the neck trick? There are also undoubtedly countless vampires that we don't know about because they were cremated. Probably the ultimate move in preventing something from rising from the living is to just make it literally not even exist anymore. And in a weird twist of irony, this was actually probably a decent way of dealing with things like the plague, which people did attribute to vampirism at one point. But I guess bodies are incapable of actually spreading the plague once they have been turned to dust.
That's like accidentally getting the correct answer to like a math problem or something. You know? Like if you're doing something and you do the wrong process, but you somehow get the correct answer, it's basically that. They burned them so they wouldn't come back to life as a vampire, but all they did was actually improve the area, so there wasn't a body that was infected that was around that could cause more harm. I feel like that.
We've also seen multiple examples of stakes being driven through the body. The classic and most infamous one of these is a stake driven through the heart, but sometimes these were also done in order to pin the individual to the ground. And the last and very bizarre one of these is sewing needles through the belly button, which makes me a little bit uncomfortable even saying those words out loud. But look at you, you're not uncomfortable by that. You're cool and different. Yeah, no. I don't know, I kind of like gore. I think gore is kind of cool, you know?
No.
All of these superstitions seem kind of ridiculous by our modern standards. It's easy for us to sit here with the perspective that we have and look back in time at these people and be like, huh, what a bunch of idiots. But I want to remind you that these acts were committed by people exactly like you and I. These were not some different species. These were not some backwards twisted barbarians. These were people who were just brought up at a different time. It's easy for us to pedestalize ourselves today, to think that we are so much better and more intelligent than those in the past. But it bears repeating that if any of us had lived at this time, we very easily could have been the person wielding the stake or the one on the other end of it. Because if we look far enough back into the shadows of the past and things begin to get hazy, we take for granted the fact that today we know a lot. Maybe, some might argue, a little bit too much. But as we look backwards into the shadows, we can see that for all of human history, perhaps even until this day, all of our actions have been dictated by one thing: the fear of the
And also, like, the reason why we know that that doesn't happen is because those people did all of that stuff. You know what I mean? I feel like humans are very process of elimination type thing. Like if you see thing, you think thing will happen, do things so thing will not happen until you know that either quote unquote works because it doesn't happen, even though that's not how it fucking works, or like, you know what I mean? Does that make any sort of sense? Like, we only know that it's silly and goofy because people already did it. You know what I mean? I might not be making too much sense on that, but it's like, it's already been done, so you know that it doesn't work kind of sort of thing. I don't know. I might be... Yeah, fear of the unknown. I have a fear of the unknown.
Today, people are not accused of being vampires. We can sit in our living room couches or on our bus ride home from school and look at memes about them,
New York City,
and TV shows about them, or read a book about them. They can be funny, they can be a little bit scary, they can be sexy, they can be super gay, but if there's one thing that they aren't, it's real. Now, you could easily say that at the time these burials happened, vampires weren't real then either. But they may as well have been, because they dictated the way that people actually lived their lives. The actions that people took at this time were done with the understanding that vampires were a very real threat. So even if vampires didn't really exist then, does it really matter if people acted as though they did? So what changed? As time went on, many of the superstitions that would make people accuse others of vampirism began to be more understood. Things like germ theory were discovered, unlocking the wonderful and horrifying world of biological diseases. Once we knew what germs and bacteria and plagues were, we did not need to pin things on vampires and the dead. Along with this, science made great strides in understanding death. what happens to a body post-mortem, and that many of the unusual phenomena once attributed to vampires are just a natural part of the decomposition process. In fields like natural science, disasters were understood more. Droughts, tornadoes, floods, and hurricanes all began to be understood as natural phenomena not attributed to the supernatural. And so yet again, the use for vampires faded into obscurity. By the 1800s, the scientific revolution had really found its stride, and with it, it drove the final proverbial stake through the heart of the vampire myth. With so much of a better understanding of the world that we live in, we no longer had need for these baseless superstitions. And so the fear of the dead rising and wreaking havoc among the living, a superstition which had existed for literally thousands of years, finally came to an end. And so these creatures finally became endearing characters of pop culture rather than vicious demonic entities. But the superstition around vampires hasn't been entirely laid to rest. In 2004 in Romania, a family member of a recently deceased man was complaining of having horrible nightmares, visions and hallucinations of him rising and wreaking havoc on the world of the living. In response to this, the man's body was exhumed from the town's cemetery. First, a stake was driven through his heart, and then his heart was removed. After this, his heart was burned to ash and made into a potion in order to cure the family members who had been suffering from these hallucinations. I will highlight again, this was in 2004. Fear of the unknown will drive people to do outlandish things, and this is why it's so important for us to understand the world around us. With every scientific advancement and discovery, we get a little bit closer to knowing. I have a great memory of, in my early years of college, there was a group who will remain nameless on my college campus who made a big stink on Indigenous Peoples Day. These individuals were firm believers that it should go back to being Columbus Day, and they backed up this belief by trying to say that in the New World, all of the people that were here were a bunch of uncivilized barbarians. Yes, these were college students, I know, they should have known better. And the way they backed this up was by posting a bunch of propaganda images made by Spanish conquistadors showing human sacrifice and things like that. Now, I thought this was hilarious for a myriad of reasons. One, shut the fuck up, and two, do they know barbaric cultural practices are not a market that are cornered in one part of the world? The immediate example that came to my mind was the Spanish Inquisition. You want to talk about ritualistic sacrifice? Or the Salem witch trials? Huh, weird, a bunch of white people killing each other over a religious belief? My point with this is not to point fingers or make some big political statement here. It's the fact that when people are fearful of the unknown, they make terrifying and horrible decisions. This is why it is all the more important to study science and to understand the world around us. Because while it's easy today to understand and accept the fact that vampires and witches have never existed, and that sacrificing people would never change how much rain is going to fall, does any of that really matter to the people to whom that may as well have been true? So finally, while we enjoy this crisp fall weather and watch our favorite vampire shows or movies, I think it's worthwhile to take a moment to humble ourselves and think about how far we've come and remind ourselves of the places that bear the bones of people to whom the idea of a vampire wasn't just a silly fairy tale. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you all for watching.
Cheers!
And I'd like to give a big thank you to all of my returning viewers. Bonus points if you're watching this at the live premiere, Sunday nights 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'd like to give a big welcome to all of my new viewers. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy this video, I humbly ask you sauce an interaction of some kind. I make all of my educational content on YouTube for free, and interactions help boost the algorithm to let you keep watching it for free. Like I always say, it's like tipping the bellhop, except it's free. I would also like to give a massive thank you to my patrons on Patreon. Patrons get early ad-free access to all of my videos and their names in the credits of all my videos as a small token of my appreciation. If you'd like to become a patron, the link to that is in the description. Wow, well that was a fun one. I've never filmed this late at night before. This is fucking weird. It's like, it's honestly a very spooky night out there, fellas. I'm gonna be honest. It is like 38 degrees and raining. There's been like rain like sheeting against the windows of the studio I'm in, and it's completely dark through the rest of the room.
Yo,
It's
nice
just, I have
atmosphere.
one light shining at my face and then the candles behind me. I cannot see anything else. I keep seeing like my reflection in the window off to my side, and it's like startling me. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching this video.
Yay!
As always, I hope you enjoyed, and that you maybe even learned a thing or two. Remember to stay curious, stay inquisitive, and most importantly, happy Halloween.
Yo! Oh my god, that's such a good outro! Okay, all right. I enjoyed this quite a lot. It was a joy to meet Milo. Really enjoyed it. I like the humor. I like everything being, you know, very informative. Dude, and I swear, every time that he like got cut off, my brain was like, wait, he was talking, go back. So definitely kept me focused. I was very attentive listening and I wanted to hear more. I really, really liked it. It was really, really, really well made. Love the style of it as well. A lot of fun. Please make sure you go check out the original video. It's gonna be linked down below. If you like my video, make sure you like and subscribe so I can see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.